Chapter 1789. Gu Xingyin didn't need to look to know who it was. Meanwhile, Song Wanwan exclaimed softly, "It's Ms. Guan and Ms. Deng." Gu Xingyin turned to look at her. Song Wanwan's voice was filled with excitement, as if she had just heard some juicy gossip. "Meng Meng, you don't know Ms. Deng, right? She's the goddess in the hearts of countless boys in our school." She listed out everything she knew. "She's the perfect example of a rich and beautiful girl. You know the Deng family, right? Her father is Deng Yuanlin from the Heroine Corporation. She's the daughter of a rich family. Most importantly, Ms. Deng is rich and beautiful. I heard that she's quite popular in school. She's in her 20s this year, and has always been single. Everyone says that her standards are too high, which is why she hasn't had a boyfriend." As she spoke, she looked at the man chatting with her. Could it be that Ms. Deng has taken a liking to our Ms. Guan? The more she thought about it, the more she felt that the two of them were a perfect match. Only then did Song Wanwan realize that Zhang Yu had always liked Ms. Guan. She laughed awkwardly and said, "Meng Meng, don't take it to heart. You know how our Ms. Guan is. She's the classic cold-faced killer. Many beauties have thrown themselves at her, but she's been cruelly rejected by him. He might not fall for Ms. Deng, right?" Gu Xingyin listened to her friend's anxious explanation and smiled. "It's okay. I'm not worried at all." Song Wanwan was stunned. This reaction wasn't normal. She was Zhang Yu's best friend. She knew very well how much her best friend liked Ms. Guan. Gu Xingyin said confidently, "They won't be together." Song Wanwan looked at her in confusion. Was Meng Meng that confident? With Ms. Deng's qualities, not many normal men could resist her. Even if they couldn't be together in the end, it wouldn't be a bad idea to fall in love with such a beautiful and elegant woman. Gu Xingyin didn't explain much to her. Deng Huijun did have some feelings for Guan Hanting. She had always been proud and arrogant. For so many years, there had been many men who had pursued her, but none of them had caught her eye. It wasn't that she disliked the other party's family background, but she disliked the other party's appearance. When she met a handsome young master, she felt that the other party had no ability, and was just a playboy relying on his family's yumeng. After all, she was quite well-to-do and could afford to waste time. It was fine for her to play for a few more years, so her family was not in a hurry. It wasn't until she met Guan Hanting at a university that Deng Huijun felt the fire in her heart, which had not been ignited for a long time. This man was the kind of man who could attract countless women to throw themselves into his arms, just by sitting there motionlessly without even unbuttoning a single button. It was as if there was a kind of magic on his body that tempted others to pounce on him, wanting to pull open his tightly buttoned shirt and see if his heart was as cold and hard as it was on the outside. Deng Huijun was very confident in herself. She had always felt that ordinary women did not have her family background, nor could they compare to her beauty. Even their abilities were not as good as hers. Occasionally, there would be one or two of these, but they would always have their shortcomings. She felt that she could win this man over. Chapter 1790. But when she got close to Guan Hanting, Deng Huijun realized that she was wrong. She thought that this man was like many other men. No matter how serious he looked, he would treat beautiful women differently. But this rule did not apply to Guan Hanting. Deng Huijun could feel that the way this man looked at her was different from other men. There was no surprise in his eyes, nor was he flattered by her taking the initiative to strike up a conversation with him. It was as if in his eyes, such a perfect beauty like her was no different from his group of silly students. Deng Huijun felt helpless. This was the first time she felt defeated by a man. Guan Hanting could roughly sense Deng Huijun's thoughts, but he did not feel anything special about this outstanding female colleague of his. He raised his watch to check the time, and nodded at Deng Huijun. "Ms. Deng, I have something to do tonight. If there's nothing important, I'll take my leave." He lifted his leg, and was about to walk past Deng Huijun when he suddenly paused. Deng Huijun sensed his movement, and looked in the direction he was looking at in confusion. Not far away, two female students were looking in their direction. There were only the two of them nearby. It was obvious that they were looking at her and Guan Hanting. What piqued Deng Huijun's interest was that one of the two female students was her biological cousin, Zhang Yu. But did Mr. Guan know them? Deng Huijun was puzzled for a second before she realized that Guan Hanting had already started walking in the direction of the school's garage. He did not look in the direction of the two female students again. It was as if the pause was just an illusion. Deng Huijun did not take this scene to heart. Perhaps it was just an ordinary coincidence. Let's go back, Gu Xingyin said to Song Wanwan when she saw the two of them walk away. Song Wanwan nodded quickly. It was a little awkward to be caught sneaking glances at others while talking to each other. Deng Huijun watched as Gu Xingyin left, and her lips curled into a smile. Zhang Yu? Cousin will be coming to see you soon. Deng Huijun moved quickly. The next day, when Gu Xingyin went to class, she was stopped by someone. Hello, classmate. Gu Xingyin turned around. Deng Huijun looked at her embarrassedly. Excuse me, are you in the Chinese department? I'm a teacher in the foreign languages department. I have a document here that I want to give to Director Xiao of the Chinese department. But unfortunately, I just sprained my ankle. Can you help me deliver it? How could an ordinary student refuse such a request? Gu Xingyin nodded and took the thick document from Deng Huijun's hands. Deng Huijun took the opportunity to take out her business card from her bag and handed it to her. I'm Deng Huijun, a teacher in the foreign language department. Thank you so much. I still don't know your name. Gu Xingyin flashed her perfect eight-toothed smile. My name is Zhang Yu. You're welcome. Zhang Yu's skin was very fair and delicate like porcelain. The most beautiful feature of her face was her eyes. They were very big, and her clear black and white pupils were like two limpid pools. When she smiled, there was a sense of naivety to her. Her nickname, Zhang Mengmeng, was partly due to her naivety. Chapter 1791. While Deng Huijun was secretly pleased with the success of her plan, she was also jealous of Gu Xingyin's appearance. She was already 26 years old, while the little girl in front of her was only 20. However, she had never had such an innocent look, whether it was now, when she was 20 years old, or even when she was younger. Her mother was very strict with her since she was young. Mrs. Deng Zhaoli only had one daughter. She felt that her daughter was her pride, and she must do her best in everything. Therefore, Deng Huijun was forced to endure her mother's resentment toward her maternal grandparents and aunt since she was young. She also had to learn various talents and skills. She did not have a so-called childhood, and she did not know how to smile so sweetly and innocently, because her mother asked her to be a proud lady since she was young. The more outstanding her daughter was, the better she, as a mother, could stand tall in this family. It had to be said that Zhaoli had succeeded. Now Deng Yuanlin did not have any feelings for his wife, Zhaoli, but he doted on Deng Huijun, the daughter who brought him pride. Occasionally, Deng Huijun looked at the children who acted coquettishly and asked their parents for candy. She felt a trace of envy in her heart. However, this envy turned into jealousy when it came to Gu Xingyin. She heard that her aunt and uncle had a very good relationship, and they were a famous model couple in the circle. They were not like other rich families, where there were all kinds of gossip every 2 to 3 days. Regarding this, Deng Huijun had reservations in her heart. In this upper-class society, she had seen too much ugliness under the glamorous appearance. Who knew if the Zhang family and the Zhang family were indifferent to each other under the beautiful appearance? As for her cousin Zhang Yu, it was said that she had been pampered by the family since she was young. Deng Huijun used to be indifferent about this, but after seeing Zhang Yu, she believed it in her heart. If Zhang Yu hadn't grown up being spoiled and protected by her family, how could she have raised such a pair of pure eyes like Zhang Yu's? She watched Zhang Yu walk away with the documents, and a trace of disgust flashed in her beautiful eyes. She now understood why her mother hated her aunt so much. Because now when she looked at Zhang Yu, she also hated her very much. It was the kind of thing that I had to pay a huge price and put in a lot of effort to get. But in her world, it was so easy to get. This kind of disparity could easily make people feel unbalanced. And the result of this imbalance was hatred in his heart. Especially since Deng Huijun did not have a good impression of Zhang Yu. It was very easy to hate someone. Gu Xingyin took the documents and handed them to the grade director. She knew that spraining her ankle and delivering the documents were just excuses. If she guessed correctly, In less than 2 days, Deng Huijun should be contacting her with the fate of thanking her. Her prediction was completely correct. However, she had obviously overestimated Deng Huijun's patience. The next day, she coincidentally bumped into Deng Huijun at school. Gu Xingyin's heart skipped a beat when she saw the woman's 13 centimeters high heels. Can't you be more careful when lying? She just sprained her ankle yesterday, and now she's going to continue hating the heavens? Wasn't she afraid of spraining her foot later? Chapter 1792. When Deng Huijun saw Gu Xingyin, she walked up to her intimately. Zhang Yu, what a coincidence! She greeted her with a smile. Gu Xingyin greeted teacher Deng obediently. Deng Huijun smiled. I'm not that much older than you. Calling me teacher is too distant. If you don't mind, how about you call me sister? Gu Xingyin raised her head and met Deng Huijun's smiling eyes. You want me to call you sister so soon? Gu Xingyin smiled and replied. I wouldn't dare. You know that you're the standard goddess in our school. If I call you sister today, all the boys in the school will send you love letters tomorrow. Deng Huijun's eyes flickered. This girl was smarter than she thought. Song Wanwan, who was standing beside Gu Xingyin, was dumbfounded. Since when did Mengmeng know teacher Deng? And they seemed so close. However, she could not ask this in person. At this moment, Gu Xingyin glanced at Deng Huijun's foot and asked worriedly, Teacher Deng, is your foot better? Deng Huijun's face froze. She had just casually found an excuse yesterday. Today, she wanted to see Zhang Yu. So she was in a hurry to leave and forgot about it. Fortunately, her mind worked quickly. She quickly found an excuse in her mind. I went to the hospital last night and did some special treatment. It's much better now. She reached out her hand and flipped her wavy hair. Her mature and sexy womanly scent greeted him. Song Wanwan was immediately stunned. Deng Huijun smiled satisfactorily and winked at the two of them. Women, what's a little pain in their feet for the sake of looking good? Gu Xingyin widened her eyes, as if she did not understand her words. She said worriedly, Then you have to be careful, teacher Deng. Don't sprain your foot. It's not a good feeling. Deng Huijun. Can't you say something nice? She cursed in her heart but smiled and said, Thank you for your concern, Zhang Yu. Gu Xingyin said, Well, if there's nothing else, Mr. Deng, we have to go first. I have an appointment with Wan for dinner. Deng Huijun smiled and looked at the two of them. What a coincidence. I'm also going to eat. Why don't I treat you to lunch as a thank you gift for yesterday? When Song Wanwan heard this, she immediately wanted to express that it was fine for her to eat alone. But Gu Xingyin grabbed her arm. She looked a little embarrassed. But Wan and I have already agreed to eat hot pot together. Moreover, teacher Deng, what I did yesterday was what I should do. You don't have to take it too seriously. In other words, she couldn't break her promise. Deng Huijun saw that her classmate was not tactful at all and would not refuse. She could only smile and say, Then I'll treat the two of you together. Gu Xingyin had no reason to refuse anymore, so he could only reluctantly agree to her request. When the two of them waited for Deng Huijun to get the car, Song Wanwan asked softly, Mengmeng, when did you get to know teacher Deng? Gu Xingyin briefly told her what had happened yesterday. Song Wanwan's eyes widened. That teacher Deng is so gentle. He even specially came to thank you for this. Gu Xingyin smiled noncommittally. Maybe, considering that the two of them still had classes in the afternoon. Deng Huijun brought them to a buffet restaurant not far from the school. Deng Huijun was very depressed. She had wanted to use this opportunity to get along with Zhang Yu and find out more about him. However, with Song Wanwan standing beside her, she could not say anything. Chapter 1793. In the end, Gu Xingyin and Song Wanwan had a hearty meal. Deng Huijun was so upset that she wanted to die, but she had no choice but to pay with a smile. Thank you, Ms. Deng. Gu Xingyin thanked Deng Huijun with a smile. Deng Huijun suppressed her annoyance and said with a smile, You don't have to thank me. She sent the two of them to the school gate before driving off. Mengmeng, Song Wanwan suddenly called out to Gu Xingyin. Gu Xingyin turned her head and asked, What's wrong? Song Wanwan hesitated for a moment before asking, Did you really just meet Ms. Deng yesterday? Gu Xingyin nodded. We met for the first time yesterday when I delivered something for her. Song Wanwan looked a little worried. She whispered, "Do you think that Ms. Deng is being too nice to you?" This was a very illogical place. Normally, it was normal for a teacher to ask a student to deliver something for her. Usually, a teacher would just thank the student verbally. This was not a big deal. However, Ms. Deng was being so formal. Not only did she ask the student to call her sister, but she also invited her to a meal. Those who did not know better would think that Gu Xingyin had helped her a lot. Gu Xingyin looked at Song Wanwan in surprise. She did not expect that her good friend, who usually only cared about eating and drinking, would have such a meticulous side to her. Song Wanwan saw that Ming Ming was looking at her like that and misunderstood. She quickly said, "Don't take it to heart. Let me tell you, Ming Ming, there are all kinds of people in this society. We can't just look at the surface." Before she could finish, Gu Xingyin grabbed her arm. "I know, housekeeper Wanwan," she said with a smile. Song Wanwan was stunned for a moment before she exploded. "Who are you calling housekeeper?" Gu Xingyin laughed. After fooling around for a while, the two of them returned to the dorm. When Song Wanwan saw that Gu Xingyin was confident in this matter, she did not say anything else. Anyway, regardless of whether that teacher Deng was really passionate or had other motives, Meng Meng would not be at a disadvantage as long as she was on guard against him. The next day, Gu Xingyin heard a piece of news from a male classmate who regarded Deng Huijun as a goddess. It was said that when teacher Deng went home last night, she missed a step. Fortunately, it was not the stairwell. However, she was wearing high heels that were more than 10 centimeters high. It was said that the sprain was not light. She went to the doctor that very night and had to rest for at least a week. Gu Xingyin chuckled when she heard the news. On the first day she came to this world, the skill she drew was rather magical. It was similar to the spirit of speech skill of the gods. However, if this ability was given to the gods, they might be able to create things, and they might be able to kill with a single word. However, in this world, due to the restrictions of the laws, Gu Xingyin's words had a much higher probability of coming true. The smaller the matter, the higher the probability of it happening after she said it. When they met yesterday, she deliberately said those words to Deng Huijun in such a worried manner. "Didn't you lie and say that you sprained your ankle? If I don't really sprain it, how can I live up to your words?" Song Wanwan even came to gossip with Gu Xingyin. Teacher Deng sprained her ankle the day before yesterday, and she sprained it again yesterday. This time, she probably won't be able to wear high heels for a long time. Chapter 1794. Gu Xingyin did not say anything. She thought to herself, "It's probably been a while since he's in the mood to hit on me." Deng Huijun was lying on the bed. The throbbing pain from her ankle made her anxious and flustered. Her mother was still nagging. "Why did you fall in front of your own house? You're not usually so careless." Deng Huijun was already annoyed, and Zhaoli was still nagging. She said helplessly, "I'm so tired now, Mom. I want to sleep for a while." Zhaoli closed her mouth. She looked at her daughter worriedly and said, "If you have any problems, remember to call me." Deng Huijun nodded and watched Zhaoli walk out of the room. She buried herself in the pillow in annoyance. It was annoying. She always felt that she was unlucky. Deng Huijun had worn high heels for so many years, and nothing like this had ever happened. She could not help but scold herself when she thought of the excuse she had found before. She could find any excuse, but she had to say that she had sprained her ankle. Great, she had really sprained her ankle. The throbbing pain from her ankle made her unable to calm down. She could not help but think of Gu Xingyin again. Zhang Yu was also a jinx. She thought of what she had said yesterday. What did she mean by spraining her ankle again? Deng Huijun felt upset no matter what she thought. So annoying. She pulled the quilt over herself and sulked. Gu Xingyin did not know of her entanglement. However, even if she knew, she would only feel a little better, and the sky would be a little bluer. It was Saturday, and there were no classes for the whole day. Gu Xingyin and Song Wanwan had originally agreed to go hiking in the nearby suburbs. However, Song Wanwan suddenly said that she had a date. Gu Xingyin, who was forcefully fed a mouthful of dog food, angrily put on beautiful makeup, and then ran to the largest theme park in the city center to play alone. Water park? She did not want to play. It would be too troublesome if she got water all over her face. Roller coaster? Gu Xingyin looked at the young people who were vomiting as soon as they came down, and walked away silently. After looking around, Gu Xingyin realized that there was nothing she wanted to do. She strolled around, and stopped in front of a machine for holding dolls. Looking at the pile of dolls in the glass container, Gu Xingyin's mood finally improved. "I want 10, she said as if she was talking to herself. She had said this to herself, but she didn't expect the children lining up next to her to hear it. "Big sister, you're exaggerating. I've never seen anyone with 10 dolls." Gu Xingyin subconsciously looked around. On the left, there was a 5 or 6-year-old little boy wearing denim overalls and a round hat on his head. He was looking at him with a serious face. "Handsome, are you talking about me?" The little boy nodded his head very seriously. "Yes, elder sister. Little uncle taught me that people shouldn't casually say things that they can't do. Otherwise it will be very embarrassing." In fact, the first sentence was said by his little uncle, and the second sentence was made up by the little boy based on his own imagination. Gu Xingyin found it interesting. A 5 or 6-year-old chubby little boy actually knew how to educate people. Which family's adults taught their children like this? She couldn't help but smile and say, "Who said I was bragging? I can hold 10. The little boy's face was full of disbelief. "You're lying. Even my best uncle couldn't catch more than 10 dolls. "Gu Xingyin, what kind of logic was this? Because your little uncle can't hold 10 dolls, so others can't hold 10 dolls? She couldn't help but say, "Who is your little uncle? Is he that good?" At this time, behind the little boy, a man wearing a black casual outfit and a black baseball cap raised his head. "It's me." Chapter 1795. When she heard the voice, Gu Xingyin's body stiffened. When she saw the man's face, Gu Xingyin smiled awkwardly. What a coincidence, Teacher Guan. It was indeed a bit embarrassing to be caught quarreling with someone else's junior on the spot by an elder. The corner of Guan Hanting's mouth raised slightly. What a coincidence, student Zhang Yu. Gu Xingyin smiled and silently turned around to continue to line up. At this time the little boy spoke. This time, he looked up and asked Guan Hanting, "Little uncle, do you know that beautiful sister?" Gu Xingyin heard the man's low voice less than a meter away. "Yes, she's little uncle's student." The little boy then said, "Just now, this sister said that she can pick up 10 dolls. I don't believe it at all." Guan Hanting had been standing there, so of course, he also heard this conversation. He glanced sideways at the little girl in front of him, who wished she could shrink her whole body, and a smile flashed in his eyes. Maybe that sister is really amazing. The little boy put on a straight face and seriously expressed his position. "I don't believe it. Little uncle, you're so amazing, but you haven't picked up so many dolls for Zhao Zhao." Gu Xingyin listened to the little boy emphasize this again and again, and her heart was also full of energy. She turned around and looked at the little Shota called Zhao Zhao. With the same serious expression she said, "I say, little handsome, your parents taught you not to casually say things that you can't do. Then, did they teach you not to casually question other people's words in a situation where you don't have absolute certainty?" These words were obviously somewhat difficult for the little boy to understand. He blinked a little blankly, obviously not knowing how to answer. In the end, the little boy could only look at the little uncle he admired most for help. Guan Hanting was originally standing aside to watch the show. At this moment, he received the little boy's pleading eyes and coughed softly, suppressing the smile on the corner of his mouth. He said, "Zhao Zhao sister is right. You can't question others casually outside. It's very impolite." Obviously, Guan Hanting had a high position in the little boy's heart. Gu Xingyin looked at Guan Hanting. After saying that sentence, the little boy pursed his lips, obviously feeling a little wronged. However, he still obediently apologized to Gu Xingyin. Gu Xingyin's heart almost melted when he saw the tears in her big, watery eyes that were on the verge of falling out of her eyes. She quickly half-squatted down and coaxed him in a low voice. "Little handsome, is your name Zhao Zhao? Zhao Zhao, don't cry. Big sister will catch a doll for you to play with later, okay?" However, the little boy was obviously a person with moral integrity. He wouldn't be easily conquered by sugar-coated bullets. He said with a strong backbone. I have little uncle. Little uncle will give me mini dolls. Gu Xingyin raised his head and glanced at Guan Hanting. It was hard to imagine this person standing in front of the claw machine, with a serious expression, and operating it, as if he was studying an academic problem. Imagining that scene, she couldn't help but laugh. At this time, the two girls in front of Gu Xingyin left with depressed faces. Obviously, they didn't get anything. Gu Xingyin winked at the little boy and said, Take a good look. Am I just boasting? I can definitely catch 10 dolls. She said the last sentence heavily, as if to emphasize something. Chapter 1796. The little boy was still in line, so both of them were looking at Gu Xingyin. Guan Hanting had a hint of interest in his eyes, as if he was watching a good show. The little boy, on the other hand, really opened his big eyes and looked at Gu Xingyin without blinking, as if he really wanted to see if she could pick up 10 dolls. Speaking of which, Gu Xingyin was still a little confident in her heart. After all, picking up dolls wasn't a big deal. Words should be able to work, right? Then, she slowly began to operate the machine. 1, 2, 3. The little boy had already opened his eyes wide. In his eyes, that beautiful sister had simply subverted his understanding. The machine that didn't listen to him every time was operated by that beautiful sister as simple as drinking water. Seeing that the dolls were successfully picked out one by one, the little boy couldn't help but look up at his little uncle. Guan Hanting was also looking at Gu Xingyin. However, unlike his little nephew who was staring at the dolls with shining eyes, his gaze was more focused on the girl, who was focused on picking up the dolls. She seemed to be very serious. From Guan Hanting's angle, he could see a very serious side profile. Her long eyelashes were curled up, and her eyes were wide open. She lowered her head with full attention, looking at the claw machine below. Guan Hanting could see her straight little nose, and her slightly pursed lips because of nervousness. She really looked like a doll. Guan Hanting was startled by the sudden thought that popped into his mind. At this time, Gu Xingyin happened to turn her head. However, she didn't look at him, but directly lowered her head to look at her little nephew. Guan Hanting looked at her with a smug and playful smile and said, Little handsome, how is it? Do you want to count how many dolls this sister has picked up in total? In front of her, there were exactly 10 dolls, no more no less. Guan Hanting felt the corner of his clothes being pulled. He lowered his head and saw his nephew looking at him with pitiful eyes. The meaning in his eyes was self-evident. Guan Hanting glanced sideways at Gu Xingyin. Her black eyes were sparkling. She was obviously very happy. He curled his lips into a smile. Just as the couple in front of him left, he also walked in front of the machine. He turned to Gu Xingyin and said, Please help me look after Zhao Zhao. Guan Hanting began to concentrate on operating the machine. Gu Xingyin stood at the side with her arms full of dolls. In front of her was the little boy, Zhao Zhao, who was standing obediently. In front of him was Guan Hanting, who was holding a doll with a serious face. This man was really handsome. As she watched, Gu Xingyin couldn't help but sigh. Perhaps it was because he had come out to have fun. But today, Guan Hanting was dressed very differently from his usual style. He wore a rather casual outfit with a handsome baseball cap on his head. This kind of outfit made him look less strict and distant than usual. He looked much more youthful and approachable. Gu Xingyin dared to guarantee that if Guan Hanting dressed like this in school, his popularity in a university would be even higher. However, his expression was still cold. He was clearly playing such an interesting game, but his expression was as serious as if he was performing a major surgery. Gu Xingyin looked at him expressionlessly, but his hands were very fast and accurate as he picked up the dolls one by one from the machine. 1, 2, 3. When he stopped, Gu Xingyin counted and gloomily found that there were exactly 11 dolls. Chapter 1797. Gu Xingyin. If she didn't know what kind of character Guan Hanting was, she would have thought that he was doing it on purpose. However, the little boy didn't give Gu Xingyin any face at all. He cheered and ran up. After counting them one by one, he proudly showed off to Gu Xingyin. Sister, my uncle picked up 11. Gu Xingyin. She held the dolls in her hands and smiled as she praised him. This praise came from the bottom of her heart. Everyone knew that this kind of doll picking was really a skill. It was already good enough for an ordinary person to pick up a doll after playing a few times. Gu Xingyin admitted that if she didn't rely on the spirit of speech, it was hard to say if she could successfully pick up one. Guan Hanting, on the other hand, had managed to pick out 11 of them with his own abilities. However, the little boy was in a dilemma after being proud for a while. Children actually liked the fun of playing games. Guan Hanting held the dolls in his hands and said to him seriously, "Since you let your uncle pick up so many dolls, all of them are yours." Gu Xingyin held back her smile and looked at the little boy's confused face. Obviously, he didn't think about how to deal with these things. Some people were already looking over. Gu Xingyin was a girl, so it was fine. However, Guan Hanting was a man, and he was an iceberg cool guy. Yet he was holding a bunch of colorful dolls in his hands. This contrast attracted the attention of many passers-by. Gu Xingyin even saw a few young girls taking out their phones and secretly taking photos. Guan Hanting just looked at his little nephew seriously. Gu Xingyin knew that this was probably his special way of educating his nephew. He was teaching him how to be responsible for his own actions and how to find a way to solve the problem. Therefore, Gu Xingyin didn't say anything and just stood at the side and watched quietly. The little boy tilted his head and thought for a moment. Then, he suddenly stretched out his hand and took the 2 dolls. He looked at Gu Xingyin and asked, "Sister, do you like dolls very much?" Gu Xingyin instantly understood the little boy's meaning and cleverly avoided this trap. She shook her head and said, "Sister does like dolls, but sister already has a lot of them." She glanced at the man in her arms. Seeing this, the little boy didn't say much and ran to the 2 girls who were taking photos. Gu Xingyin couldn't hear what he was saying, but from the interaction between them, she could tell that the little boy was probably asking the same question as her. She smiled at the 2 girls' surprised smiles, and one of them couldn't help but squat down and kiss Zhao Zhao. Zhao Zhao's face was a little red when he came back. He was obviously shy. He looked at Guan Hanting as if asking for his opinion. Guan Hanting's eyes softened, and a rare smile appeared on his face. Zhao Zhao did a great job. Sharing your things with others not only solves your own problems, but also brings happiness to others. The little boy was very happy to be encouraged. There were many children in this amusement park. The last doll that Guan Hanting caught, except for one that Zhao Zhao especially liked, was given away by him. Gu Xingyin sighed with emotion. What a smart child. Guan Hanting's eyes softened. Zhao Zhao is really smart. He glanced at the dolls in Gu Xingyin's arms and suddenly said, "Are you going to hold these little things until we go back to school?" Gu Xingyin just remembered that she was also holding a doll in her arms. Chapter 1798. She looked at the things in her arms and was a little worried. Gu Xingyin's eyes lit up when she saw Zhao Zhao, who had just returned from delivering the things. She squatted down with difficulty and said to Zhao Zhao, "Handsome Zhao Zhao, are you willing to do me a favor?" The little boy looked at her in confusion. Gu Xingyin smiled brightly and said, "I also want to give these dolls to those who don't have dolls. Zhao Zhao, are you willing to help me?" Zhao Zhao tilted his head and asked in confusion, "Can't you do it yourself?" Gu Xingyin blinked and looked a little wronged. "But you're not as cute as Zhao Zhao. If you give them to them, no one will want them." Guan Hanting, who was standing at the side, was speechless. He looked at Gu Xingyin with a blank expression as she coaxed his little nephew. If it were any other day, he might have taken his little nephew and left directly. But today, he didn't know why, but he felt that it was a good thing to watch these 2 clowns act cute. The little boy was only 5 years old, so he was obviously no match for Gu Xingyin. After being coaxed by Gu Xingyin, he quickly took all the dolls in Gu Xingyin's hands and gave them away one by one. When he came back, his eyes were sparkling, and his face was red and smiling. Gu Xingyin was tempted. She couldn't restrain her inner desire at all. She directly picked up the cute little boy and gave him a kiss. Then, a bright red mark appeared on the left side of Zhao Zhao's fair face. Gu Xingyin chuckled at the sight, but he didn't say it out loud. Zhao Zhao was a little shy. He remembered that his family had taught him not to get too close to strangers. But this sister's body was really fragrant and soft. He didn't want to leave at all. Moreover, this sister and little uncle knew each other. So, it should be okay to hug for a while, right? He carefully turned his head to look at his uncle. Sure enough, his uncle didn't ask him to come down. Gu Xingyin simply felt that children of this age were chubby and felt good to hold. She couldn't help but rub against the little dumpling in her arms. Big sister will treat you to sundaes and popcorn, okay? Zhao Zhao's eyes lit up. This was every child's favorite food, but he still went to check on Guan Hanting first. His obedient look made Gu Xingyin's heart soften. Seeing that Guan Hanting didn't speak, she couldn't help but say, "Teacher Guan, it's okay for children to eat a little occasionally. Zhao Zhao is so obedient." "Okay," Guan Hanting replied. "Ah." Gu Xingyin was stunned for a moment before she realized that the other party had actually agreed. She looked at Guan Hanting in disbelief. He looked like a very strict elder. She thought that she would have to put in a lot of effort. Zhao Zhao cheered in a low voice, and the few of them went straight to the resting area. "You guys wait here. Zhang Yu, please help me look after Zhao Zhao. I'm going to buy something." Guan Hanting watched the two of them sit down before leaving. Zhao Zhao obviously liked Gu Xingyin very much. Seeing that his uncle had left, he approached Gu Xingyin and whispered, "Big sister, little uncle is extra easy to talk to today." Gu Xingyin looked at the lipstick mark on his face and wanted to laugh. Hearing this, she asked cooperatively, "Oh, what's wrong?" The little boy said with a serious face, "Little uncle agreed to whatever I wanted today. If I didn't want it, as long as you asked, little uncle would agree." He looked at Gu Xingyin with a serious face. "So big sister, are you actually dating my little uncle?" "Ah." Chapter 1799. Gu Xingyin looked at the little boy with a dumbfounded expression. She didn't understand where this conclusion came from. The little boy looked at her and said proudly, "Sister, don't pretend anymore. I can see through it." Gu Xingyin. She really didn't know what was going on. The little boy had already explained his analysis. "My dad said that no matter how serious and cold a man is, he will become extraordinarily gentle and easy to talk to when facing the woman he likes. Sister, you see, my uncle has never been so easy to talk to. So, it must be because of you." Gu Xingyin. It sounds so reasonable that I have nothing to say. But she looked at the little boy with a gloomy smile. "I say, handsome Zhao Zhao, if your uncle heard what you said." The little boy's body trembled quickly. His uncle's expressionless face flashed in front of his eyes. His uncle wouldn't hit him, but he would coldly look at him until he cried. In the entire Guan family, the one Zhao Zhao was most afraid of wasn't his father or grandfather. It was his uncle Guan Hanting. He moved a little nervously in Gu Xingyin's direction and whispered, "Sister, you're so beautiful. I like you the most. You won't say this to my uncle, right?" Gu Xingyin held back her laughter and said with a serious face, "Your uncle is my teacher. Students can't lie to their teachers." The little boy gritted his teeth and looked at his favorite monster pillow in his arms. He reluctantly handed it to Gu Xingyin. Then, "I'll give this to sister." Gu Xingyin finally couldn't help but laugh. She put the monster pillow back into Zhao Zhao's arms and said with a smile, "Sister doesn't want Zhao Zhao's pillow. Zhao Zhao is so cute. Sister won't tell on you." Zhao Zhao's eyes sparkled, and his heart finally relaxed. As expected, he really liked this sister. She was pretty and had a good personality. When Guan Hanting came back with a few bags in his hands, he saw two small heads, one big and one small, walking together and whispering something to each other. He couldn't help but laugh. He placed the food on the table, instantly attracting the attention of the two. Delicious food was always the most attractive thing to a foodie. Coincidentally, Zhang Yu was a well-known glutton, and from the looks of it, this little Shota named Zhao Zhao was no exception. Looking at the two pairs of eyes staring at him, Guan Hanting suddenly had the illusion that he was raising two nephews. He sighed inwardly and reached out to open all the packaging. In addition to sundaes and popcorn, Guan Hanting also bought a lot of food. Zhao Zhao was a mischievous child. He reached out and picked an apple-flavored sundae and handed it to Guan Hanting. "Uncle, have some." Gu Xingyin glanced at him. This brat knows how to present Buddha with borrowed flowers. Guan Hanting looked at the sundae that was handed to him and frowned slightly. but he still reached out to take it. Chapter 1801. Guan Hanting didn't seem to notice her discomfort at all. He said calmly, "You're welcome." Gu Xingyin. She felt strangely aggrieved. But aside from these small details, Gu Xingyin still had a lot of fun the whole day. Although Guan Hanting didn't talk much, he was a very organized person. When you went out with him, you didn't need to think about anything. He would arrange everything in an orderly manner. You just needed to enjoy and have fun with peace of mind. Gu Xingyin felt that when she was with Guan Hanting, she was already doing the same things as the 5-year-old beside her, lying down and waiting for arrangements. When the sun was about to set, Gu Xingyin and Zhao Zhao left the park reluctantly. Guan Hanting felt funny looking at the two of them. He said, "Is it that fun?" Then he received 2 sparkling eyes. At this moment Guan Hanting's phone rang. He turned sideways to answer the call. Gu Xingyin could vaguely tell that it was probably a call from home. After hanging up the phone, Guan Hanting said to Gu Xingyin, "I was going to take you out for dinner before going back, but Zhao Zhao's mother called and prepared dinner at home." These words were obviously directed at Gu Xingyin. She quickly said, "I'm also going back to school early. Zhao Zhao must be tired after playing for the whole day. Mr. Guan, can you take Zhao Zhao back quickly?" Guan Hanting glanced at her. "I'll take you back to school first." Gu Xingyin glanced at the little boy next to her. Such a young child must be tired after playing for the whole day. She shook her head. "I can take a taxi to school. It's not far. I don't need to trouble you." Guan Hanting saw that she insisted and didn't say anything else. Zhao Zhao waved goodbye to Gu Xingyin reluctantly. Guan Hanting was also a little curious. This little nephew of his had been eccentric since he was young. He had always been very popular, but Zhang Yu was the first person he couldn't forget after knowing her for only a day. He couldn't help but ask, "Zhao Zhao likes that sister that much?" Zhao Zhao said in all seriousness, "Sister is very beautiful, and she is a very nice person." He thought for a moment and added, "They're much better than the aunties that Grandma found for you." Guan Hanting couldn't help but laugh. He knew who the aunties Zhao Zhao was talking about were. They were the girls his mother had arranged for him to go on blind dates. How could they be compared? He saw that the little girl seemed to be a little sleepy, so he bent down to pick her up and walked towards the parking lot. He could still hear him talking to the little boy. "Sister Zhang Yu is different from those aunties. She's little uncle's student. Zhao Zhao, don't compare her." The little fellow seemed to mumble something, but Guan Hanting couldn't hear it clearly. When he looked again, he found that the little nephew in his arms had already yawned and fallen asleep. Coincidentally, Gu Xingyin had just gotten out of the car when she bumped into Song Wanwan, who had just returned from a date. There was a boy next to her who was carrying her bag. The two of them seemed to be chatting happily. Gu Xingyin immediately knew what was going on. "It seems that my roommate is no longer single." Song Wanwan obviously saw Gu Xingyin as well. She turned to say something to the boy, took her bag from him, and walked towards Gu Xingyin. "Congratulations." Gu Xingyin winked at her. No one would believe that there was no relationship between the two of them. Gu Xingyin glanced up. The title was The Hidden Lovers of 8A University. Apart from herself and Guan Hanting, there were a few other couples mentioned in the post. The main characters in the post had a common characteristic. They were relatively well known in a university. She glanced at it and returned the phone to Song Wanwan with disinterest. "Who's so bored?" Song Wanwan saw that she didn't care at all and was about to fall asleep again, so she quickly called out to her. "I say, Zhang. Meng Meng, don't you think you should explain it to me?" Chapter 1804. Gu Xingyin didn't take this matter to heart. There was a lot of gossip on the school forum. Moreover, the author of the post didn't seem to have any malicious intentions. It was purely gossip. If Gu Xingyin took this seriously and still made a fuss about it, it would really be a case of trying to cover it up. However, even if she didn't care about this matter, there were naturally people who cared. During class the next day, several students in Zhang Yu's class were gossiping to Gu Xingyin about what had happened with a mysterious look on their faces. Gu Xingyin could only helplessly say, "There really isn't anything." However, the onlookers weren't satisfied with her explanation at all. Their enthusiasm didn't diminish at all. This kind of mood reached its peak the next day, which was Tuesday, when Gu Xingyin attended Guan Hanting's elective class. Even if Gu Xingyin didn't care about other people's gazes, there were so many people looking at her in unison. Moreover, they looked at her ambiguously and looked back and forth between her and another person of the opposite sex. It was still a very uncomfortable thing to do. Guan Hanting's face turned cold. It's class time now. If you have any questions, we can discuss them after class. If you don't want to attend my class, you can leave now. He had accumulated quite a lot of power on a daily basis. When the crowd saw that Teacher Guan was angry, they didn't dare to continue gossiping. Of course, it was hard to say what they thought in their hearts. Gu Xingyin saw very clearly that during class, Guan Hanting's gaze still swept over her from time to time. He even asked her to stand up and answer a question. Guan Hanting's behavior was obviously for others to see. We are still the same as usual. In other words, they had nothing. There was no need for them to clarify anything because of those groundless rumors. Perhaps it was because Guan Hanting and Gu Xingyin were too magnanimous that the gossipers couldn't find any breakthrough points. After everyone made some guesses in private, this matter slowly died down. However, some people took it to heart. Deng Huijun, who was lying in bed and scrolling through her phone in boredom, had always been a frequent visitor to the school forum. She usually liked to post some selfies on the forum, including photos of the food she made, photos of her travels, and so on. Occasionally, she would also share some chicken soup for the soul. Coupled with her own good looks, she could be considered a popular figure on the forum. When Deng Huijun saw the photo of Gu Xingyin and Guan Hanting, she thought it was fake. She knew very well how unapproachable Guan Hanting was. If he was so easily attracted to a beautiful female student, with Deng Huijun's beauty, she wouldn't have hinted so many times. Guan Hanting didn't react at all. Moreover, Deng Huijun was very confident. No matter how beautiful she was still just a little girl. Looking at the man with calm eyes and gentle temperament in the photo, and thinking of the man who refused to listen to her just now, Deng Huijun was furious. Guan Hanting, you wait. Gu Xingyin was innocently implicated. She had no idea that Guan Hanting had drawn another wave of hatred for her. However, if she knew what had happened, she would probably only say, "Well done." Chapter 1808. Deng Huijun rushed home angrily. Zhao Li was sitting on the sofa watching a show. Seeing her daughter like this, she quickly asked what happened. Deng Huijun's foot was in pain, and she was very upset. Zhao Li gave her a glass of juice. Deng Huijun drank 2 mouthfuls, and the anger in her heart subsided a little. She opened her mouth and said, "Mom, that Zhang Yu really inherited her mother's nature. She's still in school, but she's already seduced the famous cold prince in our school. He's so protective of her." Zhao Li looked at her reclining on the sofa and frowned. "Huijun, what did I teach you?" Deng Huijun's expression froze. She hurriedly straightened her posture and regained her elegant and calm appearance. "Mom, I was just angry." Zhao Li had been strict with her only daughter since she was young. Not only did she send her to dance lessons, but she also hired a professional etiquette teacher to teach her. According to her, she wanted to nurture her daughter into a true lady of the upper class. Apparently, her strictness had paid off. Outside, many people who saw Deng Huijun were full of envy and praise. However, no one knew what they said in private. After all, Zhao Li's affair with Deng Yuanlin back then, forcing the legal wife to step down and successfully becoming Mrs. Deng, was not a secret in the upper-class circle of Green City. Many people knew that the only daughter of the Deng family was an illegitimate daughter who could not be shown in public back then. Only Deng Huijun herself did not know. Zhao Li said with satisfaction, "That's more like it. Tell me, what's wrong with that Zhang Yu?" Speaking of this, Deng Huijun's face was full of anger. She exaggerated a lot about Zhang Yu, especially the rumor that he was in a relationship with a teacher that had caused a lot of commotion in school in recent days. She looked at her with disdain. "Tell me, What ability does she have to attract a man like Teacher Guan? So many boys in a university can't forget her? Zhao Li did not speak. After her daughter finished speaking, she glanced at her and suddenly asked, "Do you have any thoughts about that Teacher Guan in your heart?" Deng Huijun looked a little uncomfortable. Zhao Li acted as if she did not see it and continued, "He doesn't like you." Deng Huijun looked embarrassed. "Mom," Zhao Li said, "Okay, I gave birth to you. What can't you tell your mother? Don't beat around the bush when you're talking to me." Deng Huijun's expression was still unnatural. She thought to herself that no matter who it was, she wasn't willing to tell such a shameful thing. Zhao Li said faintly, "You are the eldest daughter of the Deng family. What is a man?" Deng Huijun said, "Actually, I don't really like him that much. I just feel that he's not bad in all aspects." For a woman like her, she always had more considerations when it came to relationships. It was unrealistic to say that she loved someone so much that she couldn't live without them. Zhao Li asked, "You said that the man you like doesn't like you, but likes Zhang Yu, that silly girl?" Deng Huijun nodded. Zhao Li's expression turned ugly. She had always hated her younger sister's family. Now that she felt that Zhang Yu was better than her daughter in certain aspects, she was in a very bad mood. "Tell me, what kind of person is she?" Deng Huijun hesitated for a moment, and told her about the 2 short meetings she had with Gu Xingyin. Chapter 1809. After listening, Zhao Li sneered. "She looks like a brainless person, but in fact she's the most cunning." Deng Huijun also felt that Gu Xingyin was playing dumb with her. She suddenly said, "Mom, I can't take this lying down." Zhao Li glanced at her. "If you can't take it, then don't take it. You've been wronged, so naturally, you have to get back at her." Deng Huijun's eyes lit up. "How?" Zhao Li's eyes were cold. "It depends on you. Do you want to punish her a little? Or do you want her to lose her reputation and not be able to make a comeback?" She looked at her daughter, as if waiting for her choice. Lose her reputation, not being able to make a comeback. As long as Deng Huijun thought that these things would happen to Zhang Yu, her heart was a little excited. She looked at Zhao Li. "Mom, I want the latter." Zhao Li was satisfied. She nodded, and the mother and daughter began to discuss. Gu Xingyin heard the system's feedback. She smiled faintly and said, "I originally thought that Deng Huijun was a ruthless character, but I didn't expect that compared to her mother, she's just a small fry." The system said cooperatively, "The older the ginger, the spicier it is." Gu Xingyin looked at the system with an inexplicable expression. "I say, system, I feel that you're becoming more and more human?" The system's white light flashed violently, and then it said calmly, "Host, the system will evolve as the host completes more tasks and levels higher." It meant that this was a normal phenomenon. Gu Xingyin reluctantly believed this excuse, but her heart became more doubtful. Another Wednesday passed. Guan Hanting and Gu Xingyin had no interaction at all these 2 days, and the popularity of the gossip between the two of them had decreased a lot. After all, in a place like a university, there were new things happening every day. Everyone's attention was quickly attracted by other things. In fact, Gu Xingyin and Guan Hanting did not have any contact with each other like what others thought. Since the text message that day, there seemed to be some subtle involvement between the two of them. When Gu Xingyin met Guan Hanting on the road, she would smile and greet him, and Guan Hanting would respond with a gentle expression. Until one day, Gu Xingyin received a text message on her phone. "Pretty sister, I'm Zhao Zhao. Pretty sister, when are you going to come and play with me? Zhao Zhao misses you so much. Oh right, if you come to play with me, I'll tell pretty big sister what little uncle called pretty big sister." This was obviously not Guan Hanting's style. Gu Xingyin couldn't help but laugh when she thought of the cute little boy's chubby face. Song Wanwan, who was sitting beside her, looked at her in confusion. "Ming Ming, why are you suddenly laughing?" Gu Xingyin quickly said, "I'm chatting with a child in my house. He's very cute." Oh, Song Wanwan was not interested in children, so she lowered her head again. Gu Xingyin did not reply to Song Wanwan. When she checked her phone again, she saw 2 more messages. One was the address, Jinha Garden XXXXX. Could this be Guan Hanting's address? Gu Xingyin instinctively looked it up on the web. It was near the business center of the city, and it was a high-end bachelor apartment area popular with white-collar workers. The second message, the child is immature, don't mind him. Obviously, the main character was back. Gu Xingyin could even imagine Guan Hanting's calm and helpless expression. Chapter 1810. Guan Hanting just went to the kitchen to make a glass of juice for Zhao Zhao. When he came out, he saw the little guy playing with his phone. He never put anything private in his phone, so he didn't particularly care that his little nephew was playing with it. Therefore, he didn't even have a lock screen password. However, when he heard his little nephew mumbling something, he walked over and asked, "What are you doing, Zhao Zhao?" Zhao Zhao was startled. He didn't hold the phone firmly, and it fell straight off the sofa and onto the carpet. Guan Hanting picked it up in amusement. "Am I that scary?" He picked up the phone and saw the conspicuous remark on it. "Cute rabbit." He was speechless when he saw the two messages on it. He tapped on his phone and sent an explanation text message. Then he looked at his little nephew. His parents had a party in the afternoon, so they couldn't take him. His grandparents happened to be traveling. Thinking about it, Zhao Zhao's parents thought of Guan Hanting, who happened to be able to rest for half a day this afternoon. Guan Hanting liked this little nephew very much, so he readily agreed. But, wasn't this kid a bit too naughty? Looking at his uncle's calm eyes, Zhao Zhao couldn't help but shrink into the sofa. However, except for a few pillows on the sofa, there was only this cute little boy. Where could he shrink to? Therefore, the cute little boy was easily picked up by his uncle. "Are you scared now? Weren't you scared when you asked your pretty sister out?" Guan Hanting raised his eyebrows. Zhao Zhao blinked and blinked again. He was still scared. He tried to look serious and said seriously, "Uncle, actually, I was asking pretty sister out for you." Guan Hanting. He couldn't help but laugh. This kid was so dramatic. He simply sat down on the sofa and reached out to pinch Zhao Zhao's cheek. "Why don't you tell me?" Zhao Zhao looked at his uncle nervously. When he saw his uncle's faint smile, he hurriedly said, "Uncle, don't you like pretty sister? But you don't ask her out to play? If you don't ask her out to play, how can my aunt come? How can there be a little girl to play with me in the future?" Guan Hanting suddenly revealed a smile. He gritted his teeth and said, "Zhao Zhao, be good. Tell me who taught you this." He did not think that a 5-year-old child would know so much. His uncle was clearly smiling, but Zhao Zhao felt a strong sense of crisis. This feeling made him betray his father without hesitation. "Father said so. Very good." Guan Hanting smiled coldly. "Guan Hancheng, you've taught him well." Guan Hancheng, who was driving to the party with his wife, suddenly felt a little cold. Guan Hanting looked down at his nephew, whose eyes were wide open, but could not hide his nervousness. He said helplessly, "Uncle, are you that scary?" Zhao Zhao thought to himself, that's right. She's much scarier than Daddy. But on the surface he was still stubborn. Of course not. Guan Hanting put him down helplessly and pointed to the juice on the coffee table. "Drink it." Zhao Zhao obediently held the cup with both hands and began to drink. Suddenly, he heard his uncle say, "If you want a little sister, ask your father to work hard." At this time, Guan Hanting's cell phone rang again. Zhao Zhao was about to take a look when Guan Hanting glanced at him with a faint smile. He shrank his neck and sat back silently. Chapter 1811. "I know. Zhao Zhao is very cute. Don't blame him." Guan Hanting glanced at him in silence. Suddenly, he took out his phone and snapped a photo of his nephew. The cute boy was dumbfounded. He held his glass of juice and stared at the photo with wide eyes. Gu Xingyin couldn't help but laugh when she saw the photo. Was Mr. Guan telling her that he didn't punish Zhao Zhao? On the other hand, Zhao Zhao couldn't help but pout when he saw the gentle expression on his uncle's face. His uncle was still denying it? He must be chatting with pretty sister. He looked happier than when he was talking to Grandma. Zhao Zhao decided that when his grandparents came home, he would tell them the good news. This way, Grandma wouldn't have to worry about his uncle not being able to find his aunt. Friday, after class, Gu Xingyin and Song Wanwan walked around the school in high spirits. They didn't have classes for the weekend. Just thinking about it made them feel relaxed. Then the two of them were stopped by someone. It was Deng Huijun. She wasn't dressed like a lady today. She was dressed in a fresh and casual style, and her shoes were casual. Clearly, she was still a little traumatized from the previous time she sprained her ankle. It looks like you from afar. It's really you, Zhang Yu. Deng Huijun smiled affectionately. Gu Xingyin smiled at Deng Huijun and poked at her sore spot. Is your ankle better, Ms. Deng? Deng Huijun was speechless. She couldn't continue the conversation. She smiled and said, It's better now. Thank you for your concern. Gu Xingyin looked down at her shoes and said sincerely, I think you look good in these shoes too. Deng Huijun didn't want to talk about her ankle and shoes anymore. She glanced at Song Wanwan. Her meaning was obvious. I have something to say to Zhang Yu. Song Wanwan glanced at Gu Xingyin. She didn't feel safe leaving her alone. Gu Xingyin said, Wanwan, you can go back first. Song Wanwan knew that Zhang Yu was someone who had her own ideas. Seeing her like this, it was obvious that she knew what to do. Song Wanwan then politely bid farewell to Deng Huijun. Deng Huijun drove Gu Xingyin to a tea house. Gu Xingyin looked around the tea house. It seemed that Deng Huijun didn't want to beat around the bush with him. She looked at the tea in front of her. The tea was refreshing, and a faint tea fragrance spread out along with the steam. Good tea. She praised sincerely. The smile on Deng Huijun's face was very obvious. Since it's good tea, student Zhang, you should try it. Gu Xingyin just slowly turned the teacup lid, and did not pick it up. I still don't know why you are looking for me, Mr. Deng. Deng Huijun was a little annoyed when she saw that she refused to drink. She smiled and said, Actually, it's nothing much. I just want to thank you properly, Zhang Yu. Gu Xingyin put down the teacup lid in her hand, and the crisp sound of the teacup lid rang out in the quiet space. Oh! Chapter 1812. Deng Huijun stared at Gu Xingyin. She had no idea how the person in front of her knew that she had drugged the tea. She looked at the girl who was usually like a little white rabbit, sitting quietly in the seat opposite her. Her delicate face was expressionless as she stared at her. Deng Huijun actually felt a little pressure. How could it be? She was just a little girl in her early 20s. How could she make her feel pressured? Deng Huijun straightened her body, as if this would make her look more confident. She didn't answer Gu Xingyin's question. Instead, she sneered. You usually use that little white rabbit look to deceive those men, right? Tell me, if Guan Hanting saw you like this, would he still like you? After she finished speaking, she met Gu Xingyin's eyes. She looked like she was looking at a joke. Gu Xingyin seemed to know Deng Huijun for the first time. Or could it be that Deng Huijun saw a deeper meaning in her eyes? So the teacher Deng I know is actually such an idiot? So, you drugged me, because you were jealous of my good relationship with teacher Guan? Deng Huijun paused and then said coldly, Who's jealous of you? What do you have to be jealous of? Gu Xingyin leaned back in the chair behind her. Then it's because of the grudges of the previous generation, right? My cousin. Deng Huijun's eyes narrowed. She stared at Gu Xingyin. You actually know everything. Is it strange? I know that my mother has a sister who was kicked out of the house. I know that my so-called aunt gave birth to a cousin, Gu Xingyin said slowly. Her nonchalant attitude seemed to have angered Deng Huijun. Shut up. Deng Huijun raised her voice. What do you mean my mother was kicked out? It's obvious that the Zhao family is biased. My mother was so angry that she ran out of the house, Deng Huijun said sharply. Gu Xingyin shook her head gently and said regretfully, I really feel sorry for you, cousin. Deng Huijun stared at her with her eyes wide open. Gu Xingyin said, What's the point of living in a lie all your life? Deng Huijun saw that she was pretending to be mysterious and couldn't help but ask, What are you trying to say? The fish had taken the bait. Gu Xingyin slammed the lid on the teacup. She sat up straight, and her lazy appearance was swept away. Her entire person revealed the elegance and gentleness that was unique to the daughter of a scholarly family. Gu Xingyin spoke very slowly, as if she was afraid that Deng Huijun couldn't hear her clearly. I'm guessing that my good aunt never told you that she was chased out of the Zhao family because she gave up on a good marriage to be your father's mistress. Deng Huijun's face paled. She snapped, You're lying. Zhang Yu, I'm warning you. Spreading rumors, slandering, and harming other people's reputation is punishable by law. Gu Xingyin shook her head gently. Spreading rumors. Who in the upper-class circle of Qing City doesn't know about your parents' shitty past? Her voice was very soft, but it seemed to have a mysterious power. It easily brought Deng Huijuan's mind into the context she wanted. Think about it carefully, Miss Deng. Where did you grow up in the childhood that you don't remember? Chapter 1813. Deng Huijun looked a little absent-minded. It seemed that after hearing Gu Xingyin's words, her deliberately forgotten memories all came to the surface bit by bit. Yes, she had never seen her father before she was 4 years old. The place where she lived didn't seem to be the luxurious villa of the Deng family, but a small apartment? When she was young, she seemed to have cried and asked why she didn't have a father. Deng Huijuan's face gradually lost color as these scattered memories came to her. She suddenly came to her senses and looked at Gu Xingyin, asking in a sharp voice, "What did you do to me? What did you do to me? Why did those things appear in my mind?" Gu Xingyin looked at her with obvious pity and ridicule in her eyes. "Why do you have to do this? Teacher Deng, you know better than anyone that those are just things that you have experienced. You chose to escape, and your mother won't take the initiative to tell you these embarrassing things." Gu Xingyin raised the corner of her mouth into a wicked smile. "But pretending that you don't know is just deceiving yourself and others." She leaned over and said to Deng Huijun word by word, "Before you became the eldest daughter of the Deng family, Teacher Deng, you were just an illegitimate daughter who couldn't be seen in public." Pa! Deng Huijun was shocked and directly knocked the teacup in her hand to the ground, breaking it into pieces. "Shut up!" Deng Huijun stared at her. "Shut up." Of course, Gu Xingyin didn't pay attention to her. She said leisurely, "Even if I shut up, so what? If I don't say Teacher Deng, will you pretend that nothing happened and continue to be the eldest daughter of the Deng family with a clear conscience?" Her white fingers gently rubbed the edge of the teacup, and her voice was still calm. "Do you still remember the Fong family 2 years ago? Why did they refuse to marry the Deng family?" Deng Huijun suddenly raised her head. "Shut up." Gu Xingyin only gave her an evil smile. "That's because the Fong family looks down on your birth. Even if your mother is now the official wife, those who are truly upright wouldn't take a liking to a former mistress. An illegitimate daughter raised by a mistress." She quickly dodged to the left and dodged a bag that was thrown at her. She stood up and looked at Deng Huijun condescendingly. Her gaze was bone-chilling. "How pitiful, Miss Deng. Where is your aristocratic upbringing?" Deng Huijun raised her head and looked at him. She looked down at her from above, as if she was looking at a lowly ant. Then, she sneered at Zhang Yu and left without hesitation. "System, keep an eye on Deng Huijun during this period of time. I'm worried that she will act out of desperation." After coming out, Gu Xingyin said to the system. She had definitely provoked Deng Huijun just now. A person like Deng Huijun was a typical example of an arrogant person. Deng Huijuan's trembling finger pointed downwards. She lost all her strength and fell to the ground. "It's over. It's all over." Sure enough, not long after she scrolled down, someone directly exposed her identity. The eldest daughter of the Deng group, a graduate of a famous foreign university, a young and beautiful associate professor of a university. The more glamorous her identity was, the more exciting it was compared to the current situation. She didn't even have a place to wash. On the third day, Deng Huijuan's door was opened from the outside. She was met with her father's cold gaze and a plane ticket to Country M. "I've booked a plane ticket for you. You'd better not stay here for the time being." "Dad, what do you mean?" Deng Huijuan's eyes widened. She didn't expect him to be so heartless. Deng's group's stock price had been plummeting for the past few days. Deng Yuanlin was completely impatient with his daughter. The Deng family didn't need a daughter who would only drag the family down. Chapter 1818. Gu Xingyin had unknowingly forgotten what he wanted to say earlier. She looked at Guan Hanting, who had placed the glass of water on the bedside table, and could not help but ask, "Why are you here, Mr. Guan?" Guan Hanting sat down again and said, I saw that you didn't come to class today, and then I saw the leave request from the class committee. I heard that you had a serious fever, so I came to take a look. He frowned and looked at Gu Xingyin. The weather hasn't changed these few days. Why did you suddenly have a fever? Gu Xingyin lowered his eyes when he heard that. What other reason could there be? It was what she had whispered in her heart yesterday. What Zhao Li wished for would not come true. The price to pay for this sentence was already beyond what Zhang Yu's body could bear. That was why she had such a high fever. Gu Xingyin shook her head gently. I don't know what happened either. I felt weak when I woke up this morning, and the world was spinning. When she woke up, she was in the hospital. Guan Hanting did not say anything. He only said, after your fever subsides in 2 days, you can do a physical checkup. Knowing that he was worried about her, Gu Xingyin nodded. The two of them suddenly fell into silence. Gu Xingyin looked around and suddenly said, Where's Ruan Ruan? If she guessed correctly, it was Ruan Ruan who came to take care of her. Guan Hanting thought of the girl and said, She said she went to get some hot water for you. Although he said that, Guan Hanting knew in his heart that it was just an excuse. At that moment, there was a soft knock on the door. A nurse came in with something, followed by Song Ruan Ruan. She was here to change her dressing. Guan Hanting stood up. I should go back. Gu Xingyin could not get up, so she could only say, Goodbye, Mr. Guan. Song Ruan Ruan walked Guan Hanting out of the ward. Guan Hanting had no intention of chatting with Song Ruan Ruan, and was about to leave. Song Ruan Ruan called out to him, Mr. Guan. Guan Hanting stopped and turned to look at her. Song Ruan Ruan was a little nervous. She always felt pressured when facing Guan Hanting, but she still forced herself to ask, Mr. Guan, are you dating Meng Meng? She explained, Meng Meng is Zhang Yu. Guan Hanting denied it. No. Guan Hanting thought for a moment, and roughly understood what was going on. He looked at Song Ruan Ruan with a warm gaze. She and I are not in that kind of relationship for now. Song Ruan Ruan Ruan. Ruan 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 Bien and Ruan 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 and Ruan 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 Ant. However, Guan Hanting clearly didn't intend to explain in detail. He just nodded at her and left. Ruan Ru, T. Est have her. T. S. T. She still had a slight fever, but her mental state was obviously much better. Song Ruan Ruan thought about what Guan Hanting had said before and shook her head. Nothing. I'm just a little tired.